In this sound play session, we're experiencing someone with ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. He's never done a sound play before, never looked internally at how much goes on inside his mind. In this, he finds a symbol that is powerful for him, but he does not know how to use it just yet. Have a look, hope you enjoy it and get something from it. In this sound tray session, this young fellow has been working after some time off as a labourer for bricklayers, I believe. He's really putting in. He's got experiences of ADHD, and the symbol in the background is what he depicted as his ADHD, and these are the two energies in him that just keep pushing through. The wall, the black symbol here is he called it the shit at work. And I then said, what happens when, they can't keep pushing through, or it all gets too hard, and so he pushed them over, and he said, it falls over like that. And I then invited him to, what happens to your ADHD mind? And he then chose a shell. And he said he placed the shell down, and I really hope I'm going to do his sound tray justice today. He talked about the shell. It's like all that sound in my head. If you listen to a shell, there's all this sound. And I said, how does that impact on you? And he said he starts getting frustrated. There's all these hurdles. I've got to keep jumping the hurdles, and he hears the frustration over here, and that can sit over here sometimes, and then it sits over there. And I said, what happens when you get disappointed? And he said, he then chose the little Indian and buried him, and it's like burying his sadness, just pushing his sadness down. I said, how do you keep quietening the mind? And he said, sometimes have a bit of a chuff, and that then keeps me quiet, and I just get so tired. And when I'm really tired, all I want to do is just sleep. And it was really powerful as he was sort of starting to explore this, and he then stood these guys back up, and then I hope I really do this session justice. Then he brought these symbols over here, and there's his sadness. And he said, I really sometimes, rarely, but that I can really get really angry with that sadness. And when we're having this conversation, it was his conversation coming up, he then placed in this symbol because there's a lot of, he'd never seen the inside working of his mind or his emotions or his feelings and states of being in his body, and really wants to be successful in this work. And one of the things he said that when that shell's going, the noise in that shell, it just doesn't stop. He said, I have trouble. I've got to be really careful climbing the ladder. And I think what moved those two symbols over there was the invitation. I asked him, you've had this ADHD for many years, and I said, are you disappointed with that? And he reflected and he said, yeah, he did. And throughout the process of this sound tray work, he then chose this symbol to sort of say, look, there's a lot going on, but I just don't know what. And if you look in there, there's sort of the nothingness, the not knowing. And when we don't have that not knowing, the usual little rabbit comes out for blokes. Here he is again. He's becoming a bit of a thread. The intellect doesn't know. The rational, logical brain can't put it all together. And our emotions and our deep feelings, they have a process of their own. And one of the powerful things about exploring it via symbols and sound play therapy is we actually, he's creating this. I'm asking some questions, reflective questions, and he will choose a symbol that represents them. And by being able to identify it, being able to visually see it, he takes a photo of it. It then enables us to use sort of the cognitive behavioural therapy material that, when we can start to identify a feeling, we can then, there's the cliche, name it to tame it. And by learning to recognise the deep energies and the deep emotions and state of beings and mindset inside our minds, we're then much better equipped to be able to name it to tame the emotion. And by naming it, we're bringing the rational mind back on. When we're not able to tame, the feeling, the state of being, I'm wondering, from a neuroscience perspective, whether the limbic system in the brain, the second brain development, is really kicking in. And that's underneath that is the reptilian brain. And when he was sort of talking, when he's under threat, he then put in the cobra, and this is when the mind's not working for him, the ADHD is really kicking in. He's really on red alert, and that may be if we look at from the neuroscience perspective, that's the reptilian brain, the fight, flight or freeze area. And one of the areas that he then talked about was the judge. There's obviously a strong judge in himself that's overseeing all of this, and that's really hard for him, this judge. It's all judging it. And his energy became, there's a lot of material in here, and all these different hurdles, constant hurdles in life. And when you've got the diagnosis and have lived with ADHD growing up through primary school and secondary school, that must be something really, really difficult to live with, something really difficult to manage. And no wonder there's a lot of, this is, the driven, looks quite frustrating, that driven desire to get ahead, push through, the shit at work, I'll get through that. And then with all this going on, I invited him then to choose a symbol that represents a power, a different power that's able to stop, breathe, take a rain check of what's going on, and to be able to control the mind. And he chose the gorilla. He said, that's the power. I don't use it, I don't know how to access it yet. But by choosing the symbol there, perhaps that can reflect that somewhere in his subconscious, somewhere deep within his being, in his psyche, that untapped power is there for him to be able to engage with. And so this is his story. It's a powerful story, a lot of energy in it. I hope I've done his story the justice it deserves. He's taken a photograph, and one of the powerful things, and that by videoing his session, he knows it's in the video library, the therapeutic video library. He knows it's there, and he can access it and come back to it and look at where he might be within his psyche, which aspect of his psyche, so that he can get more in touch with that. So I hope this Santre session you might be able to relate to. I think from my own perspective, I can also relate to numbers of the symbols that he's chosen and the energy that goes with those symbols. And I would have to suspect that from a Jungian perspective, perhaps that's the archetype or that Jung has talked about, that underneath us all, our hero aspect, we've all got that inner power. We all have that shell, that mind, that ADHD mind sometimes, where there's so much noise in the mind. How do we undo it? How do we start to recognise the various different aspects of our psyche? I really appreciate you watching this video. If you know someone with ADHD, it is frustrating for them, please share it and ask them to seek some help. Thank you.